Top of the afternoon to you. How are you? Oh, I cannot hear you. Hold on. Yeah, it's open. Only Johanna and Sharon are in there so far. Oh, there's Nancy too.
I'm dressed to kill today. I'm in all my work clothes, so you can see my elbows and everything.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh
I,
my,
for some reason, cannot hear you. So one sec.
I can't see.
no one can hear me?
I can hear you, hon.
No, Jacob couldn't.
Oh. Well, that's not good.
Well, it's weird that you can and he can't. So how did the meeting go yesterday, Johanna? You're muted. You're muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Oh,
you.
there. Okay.
I did record the meeting, so
Okay, good.
we can refer to it again.
Can you hear me now, Jacob?
I can. The second I
Okay.
pressed start the speaker test, it like immediately brought all the volume back for some reason. So
Oh, good.
yeah, nice
And
little.
Bob Zindel.
Oh, hey, Bob.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that
Hey,
was a
Bob.
good picture of you at the convention over there.
Oh, for the Council 2 convention,
Yeah.
doing the workshop and stuff. Yeah, that was a really unique experience. I enjoyed myself.
I don't know why I can't get myself out of the middle of the page here.
Mine's acting a little strangely too.
There, I got rid of it.
Yeah, Zoom's being a little wonky right now. I don't know why.
Yeah.
How you doing, Bob?
Hi, Johanna. Hi. How are you doing, boys? Girls, too.
Good to see you.
Nice to be out on that
Gotta
boat
throw
today.
that one out.
Yeah. So I hear you've been out at Nia Bay quite a bit. How's that been?
Yeah, we've enjoyed it out there. We're camping and we're doing stuff and enjoying life.
Good for you. That sounds like a really great time. I want to go to Nia Bay very badly. It's probably the place I want to go to the most right now.
Huh.
Yeah.
I've never visited the museum out there. Is it, have you, Bob? The Indian Museum?
The museum?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, when I worked for the state for close to 30 years, I dealt with all the tribes and all the centers and spent a lot of time out there. So
Yeah. Yep. I got to go to the prison.
oh, yeah. I just about went to work out there. One time I was offered a job before they become the higher level. And I didn't. I got back with the state again, living in town rather than traveling back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Carol and Cheryl, welcome.
Yes.
Christian, welcome. Nice to see you.
You too.
How are you doing, Cheryl?
How are you?
Good.
And Carol Gottlich is there too.
She is.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Carol.
So how did it go in Spokane? Look like you had good turnout over there.
Yeah, it was a really good setup, and all the Council 2 folks that were there to register were, very interested and wanting to engage with all the tables. And, we had somebody come and sign up 20 minutes before we even started tabling for the first day.
Nice.
Yeah, they just walked up and I got to sign up for this and just filled it out right on the spot. So
That's wonderful.
had another handful that filled it out right on the spot. And then bunch of people took materials to give to their coworkers and to post on their board at their local. And already got a phone
Nice.
call from a local president who said that one of his or some of his members went to the workshop, and he's hearing a lot of good stuff, and he just wanted to get more information from me about like how his members would benefit from joining our organization. So really good connections already.
Wonderful. That's
Yeah.
really good news. Were you able to get a hold of my Pentina?
No, I didn't actually get a call. I didn't get a chance to call her yet. So I'll still have to do that. But yeah, you had suggested her to look over that guide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still do intend on calling her. I have some changes I need to make to the guide as well, just based on some feedback from the workshop, or just things to add, really, I guess.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah, Alyssa came, and supported me in that, and that was great. It was really nice to have her there for help, and she helped run the table and stuff too. So it was good.
And Lori was there for the day.
Yeah, she flew up and attended the chapter 13 meeting, and then she flew out. So she got there at like 10 and then left at like 3 p.m. or something like that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah, it
Alyssa,
was really good.
did Alyssa get a chicken dinner?
We went up to that, and we had a little bit of sushi. How's that? It's not poultry, but
I don't think it meets the need.
in that case, yeah, I've failed my obligation there. I still owe that to her. And I know you're her representative, Carol, so I know I gotta follow through, or I'm gonna be in trouble.
That could happen.
Is that Andrea? Who is that on the phone?
It's Debbie.
Oh, hey, Debbie.
Hey, I'm trying to get in on my laptop. I've lost the audio. Okay, now it's connecting. I
there we
lost
go.
the microphone in my laptop somehow.
Recording in progress.
So
Hey, Ruthie. How's it going?
Okay.
Debbie, some of us have had some issues with audio when we first joined in. Something you could try doing is going into the audio settings and running the audio test, and then that fixed mine for me the second I tried it. So if you click the arrow on the microphone there, and then audio settings, it's just the test speaker button at the top.
Looks like Susan Herring is at the ball
Oh
game.
yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
That's where I want to be.
hey, Jacob, I've tried that, and I'm trying
Okay.
it now, and it just so.
So are you having
Okay.
issues hearing through your computer? Is that what it is?
No, I can hear fine.
Okay.
In fact, at one point I lost both the speaker and the microphone, but I was able to get the speaker back, and I just haven't gone on Microsoft Surface support to get it done, to get it taken care of. So
Okay. Yeah, I assume it's being a little weird today. The first few of us that joined had some mutual little issues. So hopefully this is kind of a one-off situation.
yeah. So okay, so I'll just be on screen with my laptop and audio through my phone.
We appreciate that. Yeah, and thanks for your contribution that you're bringing today with Emmett. It's gonna be a good leadership call.
Good.
Give it about 5 more minutes and see who else joins, and then think we'll get rolling. Hi, Katrina. Hi, Ruth. Hi, Kent and Susan and Dave. I missed somebody else too, didn't I?
Karen.
Oh, Dennis.
So Jacob, do you know what happened with Council 2's presidential race?
I don't. So unfortunately, they were doing that stuff Saturday evening or Sunday morning, and we left Saturday at like 5. So I unfortunately didn't get to hear directly from anybody about the results. I know Lori had asked the same thing, and she was gonna look into it and reach out to Council 2. So yeah, we'll definitely be providing that information, because I think it's important that, you know, when they get a new leader, we have to work with them all over again unless they're familiar with us, and try to build up to that same point. So I think it's good that we're all on the same page about that too. So yeah, I'll make sure to get that information back to folks that are interested in knowing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Jacob, Jacob,
Yeah.
this is Carol. I think it should be published in our paper or in our newsletters. Those of us who have retired city council members would be interested in seeing that in the newsletter.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely run that by Lori. I think that's a great idea. You know, just to keep, especially if we're, you know, now working on trying to support chapters and bringing in more union folks, you know, trying to do like a direct recruitment streamline. I think that is important information to share with the general membership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Alma Jean.
Just want to know that I got hacked yesterday, and also letting everybody else know so you know I'm okay here. Somebody wanted to take advantage of my limited resources, so that means I had to change my password and go through the process of having been hacked. So anyway, I am on, you probably got an email from Amazon, and it's all about being hacked, so just ignore it. I'm sorry
Okay.
for it.
No,
It
good to
happened
know.
to me once before. It's happened to others. It's something we live with, I guess. It's just annoying. And I've lost so many of my emails that I sent out yesterday. And so I'm into recovery, and I'm on the phone rather than trying to get on the set. So I'm here.
Awesome. Glad you can make Alma Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, welcome.
Hello,
How you doing?
good.
And welcome to you as well, Debbie. And Mike and Penny.
Hi.
Thanks everybody for coming today. And Susan out of Kennewick. Shirley, Claire, Maurice, how are we doing today?
Just fine.
Good to see you.
You got a great turnout today.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm excited. So yeah, Debbie and Emmett are going to be taking the helm on the main portion of today's leadership call, and then I'll kind of touch base on you know, how the Council 2 convention went, and just ways that we can continue to you know, work with our membership and work with the Federation on trying to, you know, make a stronger relationship between RPEC and their members for when they retire.
I wanted to let you know that Chapter 10 got new officers from retired Federation members, and that was really nice to see.
Yeah, John Henson is their new VP, I think, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and John's a great guy. He's been coming around to their meetings well before he retired, I believe.
Yeah, he was.
So
Yep.
that's great.
Sharon Raban is there. There's a number of them that
That's great.
have joined Chapter 10.
That's excellent. And I did just send out some of the WFC retirees, potential members today. I sent out some emails with that info. I've got a few more chapters to finish up for on that, but most of you should have gotten those. All right, Emmett, the floor is all yours whenever you're ready, by the way.
Okay, hi everybody. Good to see all of you. It's exciting to see so many members turn up. I know you're all here because you were hoping to see Jacob give a presentation, and he'll be doing that a little bit later in the meeting. But until then, we're going to be talking about political action at the chapter level. Now, I'm hearing some background noise coming from somebody, and since I'm screen sharing, I can't see the participants anymore.
Looks
Okay.
like Daniel?
Yeah, you can probably just go ahead and mute everybody, Jacob, if you want to. Anyway, that's better. Thank you. So today, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is political action at the chapter level. Yes. Okay, I think that's more background noise. I apologize. Okay, we're going to be talking about political action at the chapter level, which is a really relevant topic, and you'll hear why. But leading that conversation is going to be Debbie Lippincott, and coming in a little bit later to talk about what Chapter 2 has been doing. Susan Herring from Chapter 2 is going to help out later. But Debbie's going to start things off. Debbie's the secretary of RPEC Chapter 6. She serves on the RPEC Legislative Committee, which she previously chaired, and she is a longtime first state employee and then organizer for AFSCME, as well as an area rep. So can everybody see the screen that I'm sharing? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to hand things over to Debbie, and Debbie's going to get things started here.
Okay. And when Emmett said conversation, we definitely want this to be a conversation. For those, it looks like I'm muted, but I'm also on my phone because I've lost the microphone on my laptop. So when you think about political action, we talk about it an awful lot. So what is political action? And just kind of jump in and unmute yourself and tell us what political action is. Anybody?
This is Katrina. Political action is doorbelling to encourage people to vote and possibly sometimes to encourage them to vote for a specific candidate.
Good, good. So political action is engaging with the campaign. So yeah, that's terrific. What else do we have?
Advocating
Emmett,
issues,
sorry, go ahead, Joanna.
advocating issues with your representatives.
Okay. So standing up for our issues, identifying our issues, and working with candidates on them. So Emmett, you can start filling in the screen as we're going through this to give some more ideas. So
It can also be networking with your local political party or other active groups like Democracy Now! And Thurston County has a great group that does a phone-in talk show on issues every Friday. So networking is important.
It is important. And I've found, going to, volunteering with campaigns, just being present, being involved, with your, like I sit on the COPE committee for our local labor council. So we get to interview candidates and so we can get to know them through that. So yeah, campaign contributions, either at the local level or at the council level. I think that's going to talk a little bit later about doing contributions and kind of the rules as far as how we operate with that. So yeah, volunteering with campaigns, that's real important. Not just going to their fundraisers, but going to their, their town halls, offering to make phone calls on their behalf, going out and knocking on doors. Knocking on doors is probably one of the most effective ways to actually get people to vote. So, anything else? Okay, let's jump on to why. Why do we bother?
We want to change or affect policy that is beneficial towards people, toward more people.
Mm-hmm.
So our
Perfect.
issues get addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So our candidates know what issues are important to us and why, and what they can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Visibility.
Sorry, sure. Oh, visibility. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like to write to them and remind them that they work for us and not vice versa.
Yep, that's true. They do. They do work for us. So Emma, why don't you go ahead and fill the screen? So, yeah, no other group of retirees has more at stake in decisions made by elected officials. When you look at the, all the PEB issues, the healthcare issues, the retirement, the COLAs. There's a lot of things that if we didn't engage in political action, we probably wouldn't have a whole lot of chance of getting our legislation passed. So, anything else we missed? This is a quiet bunch. Okay, let's go on to the next. So why political action in local races? This time around, we're having a lot of city county elections. Through the Labor Council, I've sat in on a lot of these interviews, and
This is Katrina again. One of the main things to say is local candidates affect our daily lives more than any other level. They make decisions about streets and zoning and public safety. So local races are very important for that reason. Another reason is local races are the starting place for people who will go on to serve in the legislature and in the Congress. So it's really valuable to know the people who are running in local races.
That is so important, and you hit it right on. So Emma, why don't you go ahead and fill the screen? So what about our COLA? So organizations that represent local governments, it's the Association of Washington Cities, and then what is it, the Washington State Association of Counties. They have lobbied against restoring a permanent Plan 1 COLA. And those of you who, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're going fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, so here's the background issue, and hopefully we're going to be able to wrap this Plan 1 COLA issue up and in the next couple legislative sessions. But the costs for the COLAs are shared by public employers based on their current number of employees, the state, county, cities, government, local government. So it's not just the state that pays in for our COLAs. It's the local governmental bodies that are part of PERS. So here are the AWC and WSAC who have opposed restoring the Plan 1 COLA. And I tend to be kind of an opportunist, and so I take advantage of every conversation I can have. And when we had Megan Dunn, a local county council person, come to talk to our local chapter 6 meeting to talk about issues in the county, and we just had the county absorb the health department, and so there's a lot going on. But she mentioned that she sat on the legislative committee for the Washington State Association of Counties, and so we asked her if she was aware of the Plan 1 COLA issue, and she had no idea. So we explained it to her and gave her kind of the brief overview that the reason why we we have an unfunded liability, that the unfunded liability was getting paid off. And she was just appalled. She had no idea. And she's on the legislative committee. So the lobbyists are taking these positions without specific direction from their constituents. So she, and I've talked to her since then. I ran into her at our local Pride thing. And so she, oh, your issue. Yes, we're going to make sure that, that we stand behind retirees and get this issue, become neutral on the issue of a permanent COLA, basically. And she just went on and on. What now that she understands it really makes her mad. And then with the Hope interviews with the Labor Council, we interviewed a Linwood City Council member, and he put in his questionnaire that he sat on the legislative committee for the Association of Washington Cities. So with the support of the others on the COPE committee, I asked him about it. He also had no idea that this was an issue and was pretty appalled and said, oh, June 1st, we're going to be setting our we're going to have a meeting and set our legislative agenda. And so I contacted Emmett and Lori, said, he's not in my district, but, can we get him some more information? And so they put together an outstanding letter that describes basically the history and the situation, and got it to him. And I haven't had feedback as far as how the meeting went. But these are two people that are on the legislative committee. Just through talking to them and looking at their questionnaires and that, I found out that they were. And my guess is that nobody on these committees really understands what the COLA issue is. And so we are going to take a look at how we can address this. So why don't we go to the next slide?
Debbie, this is Nancy. I just wanted to add that I think those employees that are affected by that are unaware that people are speaking for them and speaking for something that would harm them. I just find that interesting that those employees don't know that. That's
Nancy, I was just going to say the very same thing. I'm in agreement with you. And I've talked to a lot of people during this last legislative session. I cannot believe the level of ignorance about COLAs among retirees. And I think maybe we need to do more in the education department. And I'm just going to throw this out, but I worked for AWC, Association of Washington Cities, for over 5 years. Maybe there are some people in RPEC that would be appropriate to go talk to some of these agencies and educate their employees.
That's a good point. And I think not only the agencies, having a meeting with their lobbyists, having a meeting with, I don't know the structure of either one of them, so I don't know how many staff they have and how they work, but that's something that we can certainly look into. How else can we address this?
This is Alma Jean. Chapter 28. We need to be wary of this comment. I'm not aware. I wasn't aware. How many legislators will tell you they're unfamiliar with our pension plan? They're unfamiliar with senior benefits. They're unfamiliar. Is that a way of being a quiet listener to collect information, not letting you really know? I mean, it's a strategy to obtain information rather than to give information. I find it hard to believe that all these people are not aware. Many of them been around longer than me and some of us. So I think we need to be aware of that. Just want to make that comment.
Well, and I think we've done a great job with the legislature in educating them. I think it's the cities and counties, the local city council members, the local county council members that can, they're not aware. They just have no idea. It's not come up. When you look at the websites for the cities and the counties, for their associations, it's nowhere on the website that there's a COLA issue.
Mhm.
So, what do we do about that? Johanna?
Yeah, there's a way to listen in on lobbyist discussions about what they're doing at the legislature particularly, and I'm assuming at the counties and cities. I can't tell you what it is, but I did access that one time, and I think it's worth looking for how to do that, because you can find out exactly what they're saying and doing at the different levels on your computer.
Oh, interesting. Emmett, do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure what Johanna's referring to. I mean, there's always, public records requests can be made, but we have a pretty good idea of, where the organizations that represent counties and cities stand on this issue. Ultimately, it costs the governments that they represent. It costs them money to to provide a one-time COLA or an ongoing COLA for PERS 1 and TERS 1 members. And so, naturally they stand against us on this issue. So we are going to be part of our the plan that we're developing right now is will include meeting with staff and lobbyists from both of those organizations, just to get a better understanding of how important this issue is to them. And if we can pair that with putting pressure on the members of these groups to back away from opposing an ongoing COLA, then I think we can really find success.
Why don't you go ahead and fill in the screen? So, obviously, as those of you that have been in these before, we're switching our focus a little bit. Last year it was all about the legislature. It was all about, getting them to support a permanent COLA, and that's going to continue. However, we want to start engaging the city and county folks. We want to start having them, chapters probably already have them come to their meetings, but how else can we reach out to them? We're going to get the list of who is on the legislative committees for these two organizations. And if it happens to be maybe one of your county council members, what should we do once we find out who's on these committees? What do we want to do with them?
I think we should just, talk to them and discuss to them about the COLAs if they don't understand them, and remind them that, those of us that are retired and about to retire are probably most of the voting population, even locally. And if it's Bremerton City Council member, we're in a lot of trouble.
Well, there's going to be some that are going to just be fundamentally against what they would call an unfunded mandate. But keep in mind there was a period of time when the employer did not make their contributions to the pension, and the employees did. The employees have always paid their fair share, but the period of time that the employers didn't make the contribution, that created an unfunded liability. Basically, or not an unfunded liability, senior momentum.
You got it right, unfunded liability. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, for some reason it just didn't sound right. That's funny. So they've been paying off. The legislature mandated that it be paid off. And so they've been steadily paying down this unfunded liability. And so Claire knows the percentages, but once the unfunded liability is paid off, then their contribution amount is going to go down. So, Claire, what is that? Do you know off the top of your head what that percentage is?
The surcharge just for paying off the accrued unfunded liability in PERS is 3.5%. It's higher in TERS, teachers system. And with the bill that was passed this session, that steps down 1% of this next year, 0.5% in succeeding years in PERS, and it steps down just 2 small steps, 0.5% for 2 years in the teacher system, and then goes to 0. And in both cases, if the liability comes back after it's projected to be paid off, in the case of PERS, it's going to take about 4 years, 5 years, I think, paid off at the declining steps. But if it comes back, then they would institute a minimum 0.5% surcharge until it got back to fully funded again.
Right. And a permanent Plan 1 COLA, that would be, what is it, like 1.1% or?
Yeah, it's around 1%.
Okay, around
0.97, 1.01, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
There are,
go ahead.
you know, we have our recurring, we have our one-time COLAs, now 4 of them. And each of those also add to the unfunded liability, but they're paid off over a 10-year period. So the first of those will be paid off in 5 more years. But they are around, I don't know, 0.14% each. So that's another 0.5% or so.
I have a recommendation. I think that Claire, I think that you should plan on offering to be a speaker at AWC and at the county's gatherings this fall. They have conferences in the fall, and they need to hear everything that you've just said. I mean, some of the detail of this and the recognition that is going to get paid off. This is not a forever kind of, you know, bill that we're giving to the counties and cities. Have we offered to speak at the Association of Washington Cities conferences and so on?
Thank you, Sharon.
In the past.
Yeah, I don't believe we've done that before. I just want to, you know, I guess put forward the way that I see the power structure inside of those organizations. So those organizations, they will listen to their legislative committees, and their legislative committees have they consist of local elected officials, people like city council people and county commissioners and county council people. Those are the people who set these organizations' legislative policies. And so if our members all across the state can put pressure and first off educate their local elected officials and let them know what these organizations that represent are doing to the former employees of these, you know, city and county and local governments, then that will give them if we're effective in doing that, those local elected officials will put pressure on the organizations to stop doing that, which will remove one of the inhibitors that is making it difficult for us to get an ongoing COLA. So what's really important here is the idea of our members at the chapter level reaching out to these local elected officials and educating them and asking for help. And so what we've talked about so far is really focused on how many people here have had a local elected official, you know, approach their chapter interested in an endorsement in an election. Okay, I see some hands up. And often those requests come through the council, and I pass them on to the chapter president. So this is a thing that happens fairly often, and it's good practice for us to consider making endorsements in those races because it builds relationships. So this is something that's been happening this year, and what I would like to see is our chapters taking those opportunities to leverage our relationship with those local elected officials to make a difference on this issue. So another, we're going to have a more formal outreach campaign that we're going to release information about next week. And it's going to include, we're going to be sharing with all of our leaders a toolkit that empowers them to reach out to these key city and county council members who serve on these legislative committees. And it's going to ask them to do a number of things. First off, at the legislative meetings in these organizations to talk about backing off their opposition to a COLA. Also ask them to pass at the city or county level a resolution of the elected officials supporting restoring an ongoing COLA. And also sending a letter, an official letter from the city or the county to the Select Committee on Pension Policy supporting an ongoing COLA. It's really important that we frame all of this in the context of how it impacts, former employees, the people who turned these local areas, counties, or cities into thriving communities. And that they deserve the retirement security that they were promised. So we're going to be releasing next week a guide for chapters to do outreach to these local elected officials, as well as a list of everybody who needs to be contacted and which chapters need to be taking the initiative in different areas. And by doing this, we are really hopeful that it will put a lot of pressure on these two organizations and get them to back off. And it will show the Select Committee on Pension Policy that actually the people who are running these cities and counties are not in the same place as these organizations that are representing them, and that they understand that restoring a Plan 1 COLA is really important.
Well, Emmett, this is Shirley. Wouldn't it be important then to just go to the city council or county council meetings, get on the agenda and make a public statement? Because a lot of those are broadcast and you might even pick up some members that way. It seems to me
That's
like if you
another
have-
thing that could be really effective. So, and I would encourage our members to do that. What we're going to be preparing is a really easy to use toolkit for our chapters, where they can, without needing to attend a meeting, they can send a letter or an email and take action that doesn't involve having to speak in public and attend a meeting. But if there are members who are comfortable doing that and willing to do that, I would highly encourage them to do the same thing once we get our materials with the messaging out. That's a great idea, Shirley.
Yeah, it's a more lasting impression if they see you as their neighbor at a meeting in person.
Yeah.
And you can go as a group, if 10 people go and one person speaks, there's a lot of support there.
Yeah,
it gets on TV.
This is Al Machine. I appreciate the strategy that Emmett's talking about coming out of RPEC, that we have a strategy. And it's important, all those little steps as you build the momentum to create what you're talking about. So thank you for that, Emmett. Looking forward to the guidelines.
Thank you, Almajine. I appreciate that. I think where this issue ties into political action is that come election season, all of a sudden, local elected officials are reaching out to our chapters and to our members, and all of a sudden they want something from us. They want an endorsement. They might want a campaign contribution as well, and that's when we have an opportunity to really. They're especially receptive when they want something from us, and so it's important that we take this opportunity to really try to make them try to get a commitment out of them to help us on this issue. And so there's going to be more requests for endorsements that come in. So I just wanted to thank Debbie for taking us through this part of the program and sharing her decades of experience with the Federation and as an activist and leading the conversation. So thank you, Debbie. Next, we're going to have Susan Herring, who's from RPEC Chapter 2 in Olympia. And Susan is, she's past president of the Thurston County Democratic Women and is a longtime activist. And she is also co-chair of the Chapter 2 Legislative and Political Action Committee. Whenever I go to any sort of fundraiser or even when I volunteer at a community event, I always see Susan there. She is always the busiest person behind the scenes, making sure everything is running smoothly. So Susan, if you'd like to share some of what Chapter 2 has been doing and how you've proactively been reaching out to candidates and conducting candidate interviews, I'd appreciate that.
Oh, certainly, Emmett. Thank you. For the last 3 years, we've had a very active legislative political action committee in our local down here. And what we do is we set up interviews with everyone who's filed for the races that we choose to get involved in. And this year, we're getting involved in the county commissioner races and the port commission races. We've stayed out of the school board only because our members are usually not intermingled. The school board people have their own retirement organization, and so they take care of those offices. What we found in the past is that a lot of local people do not, as we've said before, both elected and running, have no knowledge of the COLA and how it works. And even though they are on those particular committees with the Association of Cities and Counties, they still don't know anything about how it works, and they really haven't talked about it at that level. So what we do is we go in, we have about 10 questions that we ask them to answer on an application and send it to us. And then we set up an interview with them, and we do follow-up questions about the things that are important to us, like the COLA. And we find that we spend a lot of the time on those meetings educating both already elected county commissioners and a ton of new people who are coming in and don't have a clue about how it works. And then afterwards, we endorse, we take our information from the legislative committee, take it to the executive committee, and we do an endorsement of some people in some races. Some people who are running for office just aren't ready to have our endorsement. They just don't know enough. So we stay out of those races sometimes. But it's really a great educational opportunity. Then we do follow-ups after people are elected and have a get together, well, it's mostly by Zoom in this day and age, with legislators, talking to them about how the session went, if it was a legislative meeting, or like with the county commissioners, following up with them about PERS 1 and PERS 2 people and what they have found out, and continue the dialogue, and at least once or twice a year in between the system that we have for endorsement. So for us, I think the big takeaway for me has been how many people are in charge of our COLAs who don't understand how they work or what the costs are. We had one county commissioner that's really sharp. I mean, we're really a good friend of his, and he had to ask his financial people to tell him how this all worked because he just didn't know. So the more you can talk to your elected officials about this issue, the better. And we don't wait for people to ask us for endorsement. We just take whoever's filed after filing in May and send them an application and ask if they want to have our endorsement. Do you want to have an interview? Would you be interested? We've had a few people who have turned us down this year, but we probably wouldn't be endorsing them anyway. But we don't keep it just to people we like. We try to get it to everyone so that we can educate everybody. So in a nutshell, that's it. If anybody has any questions, I'm here.
So Susan, I was looking at the candidate questionnaire that Chapter 2 put together, which is really impressive, and I believe is kind of your first step in reaching out to these candidates and identifying which ones you want to take the time to invite to an interview. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I really one thing I really liked about it is you asked questions about where they stand on COLAs for their active employees. And what I really liked about that was it emphasized the number one, identifies, you know, pro worker candidates who and, you know, as retirees, you are all retired workers. And it also strengthens our relationship with our partners, with our active work union partners, and build solidarity between our relationships. So I just wanted to say, I thought that that was a really important part of your outreach that I think I wanted to make sure got spotlighted in our presentation today.
Thank you.
All right, how many other chapters here have done proactive outreach to candidates who after the filing deadline for local offices? Has any other chapters done that? Okay, Johanna? Yeah, I believe, yes, chapter 18's done that, and chapter 23. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, it's a little late this year to it's not necessarily too late, actually. We have the August, I think the election's on August 1st, the primary. So it's not necessarily too late. The best time to do it is right after the filing deadline. So it's something that I would encourage chapters to think about doing this year. And if not this year, the next time that there are local elections. It's really impressive to see all the work that our folks in chapter 2 put in, and it really pays off. Because these people are going to be the people who are running for these lower offices. These local offices are going to be in other roles later on, where they're making decisions that directly impact how our pension systems are funded. So I just wanted to thank Susan and all of our members in chapter 2 who for their outreach and advocacy in the political action arena.
So Emmett, there's one thing, you know, it's really not too late if you want to target a couple of races and go through an interview process. What we have found is that right after filing, candidates get inundated with requests for filling out questionnaires. And so it takes them a while to get through them. At this point, sending one to them might be okay because they've gotten through a lot of them. I mean, piles from environmental groups and, you know, other special interest groups. And so you might be in that little sweet spot right now where you can get their attention.
That's a great point. And if any chapters are interested in doing that sort of outreach and being proactive about this, you know, Susan shared the chapter 2 candidate questionnaire with me, and I'm if it's all right with our folks in chapter 2, I'd be happy to share that with any other chapters who are looking for inspiration and are looking for the sorts of questions that chapter 2 is asking those candidates.
Sure, you can send them and, you know, call me or contact me and we can talk about the questions as well.
Yep. Okay, Johanna, do you have something to share?
Forgot to take down my hand.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on now. Thank you, Susan, so much for your time and for sharing the great work that chapter 2 has been doing. I'm gonna, this is gonna be the most exciting part of the presentation because I'm gonna talk a little bit about the rules that govern what chapters can do and what they can't do in the field of political action. So first off, this chart kind of gives a basic overview of in our organization, what entities have what responsibilities. So AFSCME International gets to make endorsements and campaign contributions in federal and congressional races. So so RPEC cannot below AFSCME International, we can't give money to congressional candidates. Our political action committee is not set up legally, so we can do that. However, our executive board can and does make endorsements in congressional races, although we can't give money in those races. Our board can also make endorsements in statewide races. And so those are for statewide elected office like governor and secretary, state treasurer and such. And they can also, so yes, so they can make campaign contributions in those races as well as endorsements. Now, the RPEC Political Action Committee itself can make endorsements and campaign contributions in state legislative races. And so that means that chapters can make endorsements in their local races. And they can also make campaign contributions in those local races. But it's really important that the money goes through the RPEC PAC, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. If anybody has any questions at any point, please feel free to jump in. So like I was mentioning, so any sort of local race, county, city, other races like ports, school board, chapters are free, and also as well as local ballot measures. Chapters are free to make endorsements in those races, and chapters cannot make endorsements in races at other levels like statewide, state legislature, or congressional or federal races. Now, chapters cannot make direct campaign contributions to candidates. So your chapter can't just write a check and mail it to a candidate. Chapters, however, can make contributions to campaigns indirectly through the RPEC PAC. And so essentially the way that that works is if your chapter wants to make a campaign contribution and authorizes the contribution, what your chapter needs to do is write a check to the RPEC PAC and let us know, let me know who you want the campaign contribution to go to. And then at the office, we will make sure that the campaign contribution is done legally, and we will pass the money along to the candidate, and we'll give your chapter credit, and we'll make sure that the campaign knows that these funds are actually coming from RPEC chapter, whatever. Carol?
Is this a new rule?
No, this has always been the rule.
I thought chapters could make direct contributions locally.
Okay.
Okay. Up to a limit.
So yeah, so let's this is maybe something we need to talk about offline, but yeah, so all money needs to go through the RPEC PAC, and this is something that chapters routinely do. Some chapters, and we make sure that the chapter gets credit, but for it to be done legally, it needs to come through our PAC, and the reason is we need to report it to the Public Disclosure Committee, and there's a lot of Elizabeth, our accountant, does a lot of there are a lot of complicated steps that need to be followed for it to be done legally. So she takes care of all of that, and legally the campaign contribution is coming from the RPEC PAC, but we let the candidate know that the money's actually coming from the chapter.
What about judges?
Same thing. So chapters cannot make direct campaign contributions to anybody. The money needs to go through the RPEC PAC.
And that's not a new rule.
That's not a new rule. No.
I'm going to go away now.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, Susan.
Yes, and so how do state legislative campaigns get endorsements? I mean, in our local, is that something we ask the state legislative committee to do, or how does that work?
So the RPEC Political Action Committee, so the committee itself is responsible for making endorsements in state legislative races. Now, oftentimes the PAC will take recommendations from chapters based on how chapters feel about their local candidates. So that's something that almost always happens, and it's taken into account. But it's the responsibility of the RPEC members who sit on the Political Action Committee to make those endorsements. Those decisions will happen, around after the filing deadline in May and June of next year, and we make sure that all chapters are aware that meeting's happening and that they're all welcome to come and share input at those meetings.
And who sits on the RPEC PAC committee?
So there are 11 members on the RPEC PAC, including the president, I believe 5 other members in addition to the president are RPEC executive board members. That's in the rules, and then there are 5 additional members who are appointed. There are all members are appointed by the president, but there's 5 non-board members, and they generally represent every part of the state. Bev Hermanson is the RPEC PAC chair representing Olympia.
Thank you.
And
You're
then what
welcome.
about, can we make an endorsement and not give money? And
Yes.
let them use our logo or our name?
Yeah, so yes, so you can make, so chapters can make endorsements without going through the RPEC PAC. But if money is changing hands, then it needs to be done through the RPEC council office.
What about using the logo?
I believe it says in the PAC policy and procedure that chapters are not allowed to use the RPEC logo for purposes of political action. That's not something that I think we've necessarily enforced in the past, but the rules say that it's not something that should be done.
So when you give money through the RPEC PAC, then do they automatically have access to the logo?
They can find our logo on the website most of the time. You know, yeah, this is something that maybe we can look at changing or revisiting in the PAC policy and procedures. But, you know, I believe the rules say that chapters can't use the RPEC logo for political action purposes. Now, it doesn't say that campaigns can't use the RPEC logo if they were endorsed by an RPEC chapter.
So a candidate can use it if they're endorsed by a chapter.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't explicitly say that that is against the rules.
Okay, because we've been asked by candidates to use that logo.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's candidates like to, you know, when they receive an endorsement from us, they like to put our logo on their website along with all the other logos of organizations that they were endorsed by. And so that's, you know, I think that's something that we can maybe revisit at the September PAC meeting if that rule should be looked at to allow candidates to do that explicitly. Ed?
Yes, could we have the screens that you're providing and some of these fine detail on what you're just talking about be provided to maybe the RPEC internet's area, you know, where people can go and get information and it's all there and it's standard and everybody gets the same information.
Yeah, we can email the PowerPoint to or probably a PDF of the PowerPoint to chapter presidents and chapter political action committee chairs after the meeting.
But what about having it available for any individual who's interested in finding out more about it, even before they sign up for RPEC, to see what we're doing, how we do it, what the rules are?
I don't think our policies and procedures are typically posted on our website. All of this information that I'm sharing comes from the a document called the PAC Policy and Procedures. And you know that you know, I'm happy to share that with any member who's interested. But I don't think it's something that we would necessarily put on our website.
Okay, has to be a secret. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now let's see. Moving on here. So this slide covers a lot of what we were just talking about. The other aspect to this is chapters can choose to contribute. They can make campaign contributions to candidates who are actually not local elected officials, to candidates for state legislature or statewide office or statewide ballot initiatives, as long as it's not in conflict with decisions that the RPEC PAC or the RPEC Executive Board have made. And so essentially what that means is if a candidate has been endorsed by the RPEC PAC, a candidate for state legislature, let's say, and a chapter can choose to make a campaign contribution to that candidate. Now, what's important to keep in mind is there are campaign contribution limits, and money, legally, all money, no matter if it comes from the RPEC Political Action Committee Fund or if it initially came from a chapter treasury, all campaign contributions made by RPEC count towards those. They count the same towards those limits. And so a chapter can't give money to a candidate who the RPEC PAC has already given a maximum contribution to or plans to give a maximum contribution to. Carol?
Could you define what an indirect campaign contribution is?
Yeah, so when I say indirect campaign contribution, what I'm talking about is a chapter writing a check to the RPEC PAC and letting the RPEC PAC know what they would like the RPEC PAC to do with the money. So which candidate they'd like the money to go to, and then the RPEC PAC writes a check from the RPEC PAC and handles all the legal aspects of making a campaign contribution and delivers the money to the candidate, giving credit to the chapter.
So if a member decided to hold an event, a chapter decided to hold an event to support a candidate, how does that apply?
You know, that is something that I haven't thought about before. So let's talk about that. Yeah, let me do a little bit of research into that, and then we can talk about that another time.
Because sometimes people will like want to make flyers and canvass their neighborhood. You know.
Yeah, so
they run off on their copy machine at home.
But usually you can get those from the campaign. You don't have to do it yourself.
No, I understand that. I'm asking because I've seen people do this really.
so if chapter funds are being spent to campaign for a candidate, then it's really important that that is coordinated with the RPEC PAC. And so, you know, there's a whole other arena of political spending called independent expenditures, where essentially instead of an organization giving money to a candidate's campaign, they are making their own outside expenditures to promote a candidate. This is something that we do in key legislative districts before elections. We'll do mailings to our members, and there are a lot of rules that govern how that needs to be kept track of. So it's important that any activities that involve chapter money being spent either as the form of a campaign contribution or as an independent expenditure, which would be like, you know, making flyers and, you know, to promote the candidate and mailing them or handing them out, or that anything that involves money and politics be coordinated with the council office, so we make sure that the rules are being followed and that everybody's on the same page.
So part of my question is, for example, my chapter endorsed someone for judge, and we put it in our newsletter, our local chapter newsletter, that we were supporting her. So how do the rules apply to that?
Yeah, that's something that that we should probably talk about offline. I think that that could potentially count as political spending and would need to be reported to the PDC.
Thank you, Amit.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions about you know, chapters making indirect campaign contributions to, you know, to other candidates? So for example, last election cycle, chapter 13 Spokane, they were very generous and basically made maximum campaign contributions to their 2 state representatives from the 3rd district who were up for re-election. So that's Representative Marcus Roccelli and Representative Tim Ormsby. And so they, you know, that's $4,000 in total between the 2 candidates that they essentially indirectly contributed to the candidates through the RPEC PAC. And so that's an example of how chapters can use chapter funds through the RPEC PAC to support their local candidates for state legislature. Does anybody have Claire?
Just to state the obvious, none of this means that just because you're an RPEC member, you can't make a personal, out of your own funds, contribution to a candidate.
That's absolutely true. Thank you for for pointing that out. Yeah, so what I'm talking about just only governs how, official decisions that our organization makes to support candidates or to spend money on them. Johanna?
Can you remind me what the new limits are? I think they changed this year.
Yes, so the campaign contribution limits have been increased. So for state legislature, it is, instead of being $1,000 per election, it is now $1,200 per election. Now, the primary election and the general election are considered separate elections. And before the primary election, you can give a candidate a contribution for both the primary and the general election. They're not allowed to spend any of that money until the general election, any of the general election money into the general election. But it's now $1,200 per election for a candidate for state legislature. So that's $2,400 really per election cycle. For statewide office, it is double that. So $2,400 per election, and $4,800 per election cycle. Okay, does anybody have any questions before we move on? Okay, I see some, let's see. Just reading the chat here. Okay. Yeah, we'll be sure to share the information that we're discussing today. So next up, so I think we mostly already went over this. So just the campaign contribution process. So number one, your chapter or your chapter executive board needs to authorize the campaign contribution in whatever way it does that via a vote of the membership or the executive board. And then the chapter writes a check to the RPEC PAC for the total amount of money that your chapter wants to contribute to the candidates. And then you mail it to the RPEC office. Let me know which candidates you want to contribute to. In writing is great with the check. You can just include it, the check. And then we'll prepare and mail the check with a cover sheet to the candidates, making sure that they understand that the money is coming from our local chapter, which supports their campaign. Carol?
Can we have them take the money out of the per capita rather than writing a separate check?
That's not something that we've done in the past, and I think that's something I can talk to Elizabeth about. Yeah, it'll be up to her and just what fits with her workload. I like the idea of chapters mailing in a check. I think might keep things cleaner. But it might be easier for her to do it the other way. So I'll check with her.
Do you need the minutes of the meeting where we authorize the contribution?
It would be helpful to include those. Yeah, thank you. Ed and then Claire.
Yes, when we send the money or the PAC sends the money, do we enclose a letter or some kind of document indicating our interest, our position, what our agenda would be, so that it reminds the recipient of the effort afoot and why they're getting the money?
I think it would be, there's a time and place to remind elected officials and candidates of, what our agenda is. I think at the same time that we give them a campaign contribution is probably not the best time and place to do that. I think it's important that we do not try, that obviously we're going to endorse candidates who represent our who have good positions on our issues. But it's important that we not make it look like the campaign contributions are tied to any expectation for how they vote. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. It doesn't constitute a bribe. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Claire.
Just to an answer to Carol's question, I'll side with whatever Elizabeth says, but I think it's important to have a very clean and clear paper trail for PDC filing purposes and a check from the chapter rather than moving money from one pocket to another within the organization. Get you a much cleaner paper trail.
Thanks, Claire. I appreciate that, and I'm inclined to agree. Maurice and then Johanna.
Emmett, Judy DeVoe is in the waiting room trying to get logged in, or
Oh, thank you. Let me let her in. Okay. She should be here
Hi.
momentarily. Hi, Judy. Sorry for making you
Hi.
wait.
I'm sorry I'm late.
Well, welcome. Okay.
Thank you.
Shirley.
I had to take a phone call. I may have missed this. You may have said talked on it, but also when on number 4, in the past, you've sent the checks like to myself or John, and we've taken them in person, which has worked out really well.
Yeah, so that's another option.
Yeah, okay.
And
All right.
I totally forgot about it when I was putting this PowerPoint together. So thanks for pointing that out. So yeah, so often what we do, what we've done in the past, and this is either for local elections or for state legislature, is if a member of the chapter would like to personally deliver a check to a candidate, that's something that we can arrange. So instead of mailing the check to the candidate, we mail the check to a member who is responsible for arranging a time and place to meet the candidate and hand off the check. It's another opportunity for our members to, to meet with candidates and strengthen relationships.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else here before I move on? Okay. I'm going to hand things over now to Jacob, who is going to talk a little bit about the AFSCME Council 2 convention and how that went. Jacob, I'm sorry for taking up so much of the presentation time.
Oh, no worries at all. Yeah, I'm just going to briefly kind of touch base on how that went and, kind of what we're looking at moving forward, trying to, strengthen our connection with Council 2. And for those of you that don't know, AFSCME Council 2 is city and county workers in Washington. So yeah, over the weekend, Alyssa and myself, we went to the AFSCME Council 2 convention in Spokane. Thursday, Friday, Saturday is when we were there. And we spent a decent amount of time hosting a table on behalf of RPEC, with resources, applications, benefits, just trying to draw in some of the near retirement folks from the convention. We got a good handful of people that were at retirement age that signed up. A lot of folks that are about a couple years out that took paperwork and my contact information, so that way they can reach out when they're at that 18-month mark and can become an associate member. And then a lot of folks just took materials to go post at their locals or to give to some of their coworkers that weren't present at the convention. So, overall, a really great, successful time there. And I even had a local president from one of the city county locals around the state that mentioned that their members had attended the workshop that I hosted there, and that he heard that there was some good information and was wanting to know more about RPEC to pass along to his members. So that's a really good follow-up that I got. The other thing that we did at the convention, besides just the tabling, was that I actually hosted 2 workshops that were just over an hour long each, for a total of 50 people, or like 55 people between the 2 groups. And it was a guide to retirement. And so what I did is, for a good portion of this year so far, in bits and pieces, I've worked on this guide to retirement as I've had time to do so. It's about a 16-page document that breaks down, a step-by-step process on, at what point in the timeline do you need to be paying attention to certain steps that you need to take to have a successful retirement. Got a lot of good feedback on that. And, there's so much potential for where I can take something like that as far as just improving it, expanding it, building additional sections that cover things that aren't covered in this, and kind of, offering some workshops moving forward, whether that be to potential members at conventions and policy meetings, things like that, to, people that already are interested in our associate members, right? People that we can help walk through the last year and a half of their working career. And so that's kind of where things left off as after we left. Overall, very successful. And so I'm not going to dig into some of the other stuff I was going to bring up today. It was more so going to be like follow up. How can, with the support of the council, how can chapters try to get connected with the county and city locals in their area? And so I think that's something that, you know, we're going to dig into in quite a bit more depth in the future. Carol and then Johanna.
So I talked with the president of Council 2 a little while back because one of his former executive board members was a member of our council and passed away. And so I called him to notify him that that had happened because I knew that the person that passed away was very popular with Council 2 as their representative when he was active. And he told me that at the convention, they were going to do a whole thing honoring Wayne Withrow. Do you recall that that happened? Did you happen to see it, or were you not in the convention hall?
No, because yeah, we, you know, anytime where stuff was going on was, you know, we weren't a part of that as outside of the tabling times. So we didn't really see any of what was going on outside of the registration room. And we did go to a reception, but otherwise, like, we didn't get to see any of the events, the acknowledgements or recognitions, the elections. Yeah, we didn't have the opportunity to sit in on those things.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I will follow up because I think it's a good point that Carol made, that she mentioned before most of you got on, that for chapter leaders to know who the new elected leaders are of Council 2 or Council 28, just to know if we still have a continuous relationship with somebody in leadership, or if we're kind of having to start over with a new contact. So I'll get more information about the results of the Council 2 convention from last week. Go ahead, Johanna.
Yeah. I want to remind everyone that at the convention last year, we passed, you passed a resolution asking that we coordinate with both 28 and 2 to try to urge them to put in their bargaining process a request, or if it's agreed to, a mandate that the employers actually have to give RPEC information to their retirees as they're leaving in that process. And that, to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been any real progress on that, but that's one of the ways that we can protect our asset loss. We're losing we've already lost the ability to have DRS give us any information. And it may not be too much longer before other channels are clogged up by the Freedom Foundation or someone. So if we can coordinate directly with these councils to have them put into their bargaining process the fact that our information should be given to their retirees as they go. Am I making any sense? That's the process.
Yeah, no, Johanna, honestly, that sounds like it would be the best case scenario, because then we don't have to have the issue of, you know, are certain agencies not going to be receptive to us approaching them about wanting to support, you know, their employees when they retire. You know, like my mom works at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and you know, I had leaned on her to ask if she could talk to her boss about whether they'd be able to post things regarding RPEC in there, and she was told no. So it's kind of hit and miss with the agency, but if it's in a bargaining unit for the union, then the agencies don't have a choice.
And it shouldn't cost much if we're required to provide the information. So it's
exactly.
It just seems really clean, and well, I hope we can move on that.
Okay, I will. I'll follow up with Lori about that. I don't know where that stands currently, and I'm not sure if Emmett has any additional information on that either.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Johanna.
Bargaining for Council 28 has already occurred.
Okay, when does bargaining usually happen for Council 28, Carol?
They just concluded bargaining just recently.
Okay.
So probably 2 years. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what their contract period is this time, because they negotiate that as well, but it's typically 2 years.
And is it usually about this time of the year consistently?
that it's finished. Oh, it's got to be wrapped up before September.
Okay, okay. Okay, that's good to know. I will start, identify kind of a pattern on that so we can tune into that on a biennial basis. I think that's all I'm going to cover as far as, the council's 2 stuff today. Next month's leadership call, we're going to go a little bit deeper into, getting connected with the unions, the locals that are in your region, just figuring out how to identify, people that work for certain employers, work for the county, asking them, what are they a part of a local, what's their local number, and then being able to work with the council on, contacting leadership from the local. And for example, I did a partnered presentation on Zoom with Steve Gamble, our EB representative for District 4 for RPEC, and that went really well. And Steve and I didn't have any prior opportunity to practice any of the material or anything. We just kind of were on the same page for the most part about things, and spoke our pieces of it from a member and union retiree standpoint and from a staff standpoint. So just something to consider for the future. And yeah, we'll talk about it more in July. Oh, I got a hand. Johanna, are you still? You got a.
No, I always forget to drop my hand.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Does anybody have any final questions or anything before we call it? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's a really great meeting. And thank you, Debbie, for your contributions with Emmett as well.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.